have... Okay, this is a question that I'll just say. I find that people's first films are often autobiographical in a certain way, and it may not be the story that's autobiographical, but perhaps a theme that is. Do you find that to be true in this story, thematically, or in any particular way?
With Good Dick, it wasn't autobiographical.
Yeah.
It was like based on certain people who I know personally who have been sexually abused or who were sexually abused in their childhood and can't. Some of them can, but some of them just cannot have a functioning relationship.
Yeah.
So that was like so compelling to me and such a injustice.
Yeah.
That could be taken from them. That the thing that could heal them would be the thing that they cannot do. And it like drove me crazy. It's kind of like I don't know why it drives me nuts, but it just does. I think it's so horrible. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
So, and I also feel like perhaps because I felt very lucky to not have gone through something like that, you know, I think that I wanted to give a voice to something that didn't have a voice artistically, because, you know, if you don't feel like having a relationship, you're not going to make a movie about it or write a book about it.
Yeah.
If you can't function, you can't function.
Yeah.
So that was really like what that could, you know, it was, there were aspects of it that I took from knowing certain people in my own life, and I wanted to really shine a light on something that I felt like hadn't really been illustrated very well before in cinema in recent times. You know?
Yeah.
So, but the themes that love can heal your life, or that if you stick with someone through something that's difficult, they'll come around.
Yeah.
There's a possibility that they'll come around.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that's a theme in my life. I mean, it's like the way that I've figured out, I think, what love maybe is you know, is that, you know, in the face of the worst possible demons or tragedy, you just have optimism.
Yeah.
That's love.
Yeah.
You stay open.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a theme for me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I like that.
I guess so.
I like that. Yeah, no, I feel like it doesn't have to be, because I feel like a lot of people have already asked me if mine is
personal to you,
and
right.
It's so personal, but not the story literally, but themes in the story are, you know.
Right,
so
right.
I just think it's interesting how we find different ways to tell something personal without the actual literal story being
without like on Tuesday this happened and then on Wednesday this thing happened.
Yeah,
and on
it's
Thursday.
not. So, and yet it's still so close, you know, so deeply personal in its own way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I think getting a lot of questions about that too is interesting, because then you're personally answering the question on behalf of the film, and then you're personally answering the questions. So it's like it's an interesting thing to go through, because I do think you it's almost like you ask a question with the script, like you ask yourself something, like you're asking yourself a question.
I like that.
And then by making the movie, you're kind of answering the question. And it's a deep
And then it asks questions
thing
to other people.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Or other people watching it are like, I know that question.
Yeah.
I have the opposite answer.
Yeah.
Or I know that question, I have the same answer.
Yeah.
It's very psychological to watch a movie.
There was a theater director I really liked who said, it'd be great if people watched the play or the film and said, or for the director to say, instead of saying to the audience like, look at this, instead to say like, what is this?
Yeah.
And present that, and I thought that was a really interesting way of thinking of a piece of work.
Right. Like, what is it?
Yeah. Here it is.
Here's the problem. What is it? Or
What
here's
is it? Yeah.
here's the journey. What is that journey?
Yeah.
That's really, really
what you were just
compelling.
saying.
I think there's something that happens too where, like, there's truth in things. Like, there's truth to things. There's truth to your script. Which is why I cried when I read it. I was like, oh, this is amazing! So there's truth to things that doesn't have anything to do with your real life or whatever as a writer, as a person. But there's a truth. And so I always wonder what that is. Like, why one thing is truthful and another isn't. Why one thing is totally resonant and another isn't.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really funny to think about. But I also think, like, okay, well, it's just either innate in something or it's not, and so when it is, just go with it.
Yeah.
And, like, I think I is so truthful and so wonderful that I can't wait to experience watching the film, because it's going to be so just, like, so compelling and real, and I'm sort of fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by what's real, because I think it's great to watch things that are on television and watch things that are very entertaining, and, like, you don't have to worry about what's real, or you bring what's real to it, you know. Like, I think if you're watching something on TV and you're with someone who's dying in hospital and they're getting to, like, laugh at that, that is, like, the most beautiful thing I've ever heard of.
Definitely.
But in that case, it's like the thing that's innately truthful about it is the moment of watching it. That the audience really has to be involved, otherwise there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And being involved means that, like, you're requiring, like, their soul and their whole life and their psychology to be, like, watching you. But I think it's going to be interesting as we get older to watch things that we did
Definitely.
when we were younger.
Definitely.
Because we're going to be like, really, then we're going to be like, what is that? Like,
what were we doing? What was I?
What were we doing? Or we'll be like, that's brilliant. Who knows what we'll think.
I hope that's what we'll say.
But we'll have a fucking brilliant viewing party in the old people's home anyway. We'll have a cinema. A screening room.
Let's see. I have a few more questions and then I want to figure out how I want to... Okay, I'll leave that one for the last. Do you have... Okay, you've probably gotten advice from other filmmakers you admire. But, you know, I don't know if you can think of anything off the top of your head that stuck with you in, you know, in any part of the process, whether it was after your film was made or before. But you could think on that, and if you have any advice, in general, if there was anything that you feel like you figured out while making it that made you realize, you know, I don't know, whether it was something internal that, like, allowed you to take ownership of what you were doing, or it's a big question, and I feel like just sharing the stories is kind of, you know, in general, just that.
Well, I think I had great advice from a lot of the people I read. Like, I read and reread, like, Walt Whitman, or I read and reread, like, Maya Angelou. Anyone, you know, who's, you know, or listening to music is very, very helpful. Like, staying in the place of creativity and openness and not getting bogged down, I think, is really important at any point in your life.
Yeah.
Because it's like, once you've made something, then you've made it, and then you have to make another thing. So you can feel like, oh God, like, how do I make another thing?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of writers or filmmakers have that kind of functioning in their brain at all times. And so I think something that I always think of, like, when I just don't know what to do, I always go back to Walt Whitman, because he always said, or he wrote down. He doesn't speak to me. He doesn't call me. We're not friends, Jocelyn.
I don't know.
He's not my friend. He never knew me. But he said this thing. He said that it's not chaos and death. It's union, form, and plan. It's eternal life. It's happiness.
I like Walt Whitman.
I love him. He's why I love America.
He's
or he's one of the reasons why.
Have you ever heard that recording of him? A really, really, it's like a super early recording of his voice.
I've never heard it.
I have it somewhere. I believe so.
Oh my God.
It's like there's a train in the background and he's reading one of his poems. I have it somewhere.
I have to hear that.
It's really like early, old.
Oh
yeah,
my
it's pretty
God.
cool.
Yeah, I have to hear that because he's a master.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. And I think that's really good advice, to stick with the fact that there's a master plan. And that your masterpiece is your life, and your life is long.
Yeah.
So having a sense of that is really, really good. And being respectful to people is really important. I don't know where I got this idea that everybody has to be respected on a set. Because most of the sets I've been on, like that isn't necessarily the case, but I just think everybody's job is as important as everybody else's. So this idea that the actor is so deified or something is weird to me. I don't think it's necessary. I think, everybody should be able to talk to everybody else. Everyone should feel comfortable. Everyone should feel like they're coming to their work, yes, but a place that's kind of their home.